The victory at Proxima Centauri Station was a turning point, but it wasn't the end. The humans had fought bravely and managed to push back the Krill forces, but everyone on the station knew that the enemy wouldn't stay away for long. Commander, Daxor's fleet still hovered menacingly in orbit, regrouping and planning their next move. For now, there was a fragile calm, but it felt more like the eye of a storm than true peace. Sarah Blake stood on the observation deck, staring out at the vast expanse of space. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest, and her brow was furrowed in thought. The view was breathtaking, countless stars twinkling against the endless blackness. But Sarah couldn't enjoy it. Her mind was racing with questions. How much time did they have before the Krill attacked again? Could they hold out if the enemy returned with even greater numbers? And most importantly, what could they do to tip the balance further in humanity's favor? Behind her, Captain Ryan Mitchell approached, his boots clicking softly against the metal floor. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the galaxy on your shoulders," he said, leaning against the railing beside her. Sarah sighed. "Feels like I am," she admitted. "We won this round, but it doesn't feel like enough. If we don't find a way to hit them harder next time, all this effort might be for nothing." Ryan nodded, his expression serious. "I hear you, but we've got something they don't, an edge. We're adaptable. They think they're untouchable because of their fancy tech and big ships, but they haven't figured us out yet." "That's exactly why we need to act fast," Sarah replied, "before they adapt to our tricks." The two fell silent for a moment, watching as distant flashes of light signaled repairs underway on the damaged sections of the station. The scars of battle were everywhere. Burn marks on the walls, shattered windows patched with emergency seals, and piles of debris, waiting to be cleared away. Yet despite the destruction, the station buzzed with activity. Engineers worked tirelessly to restore systems, medics tended to the wounded, and soldiers prepared for whatever came next. Dr. Emily Grant joined them a short while later, clutching a datapad filled with new calculations. Her face lit up with excitement as she spoke. "I've been analyzing the data from the last EMP attack," she began, "and I think I've found a way to amplify its effects." Sarah turned to her, intrigued. "Amplify how?" Emily adjusted her glasses and tapped the screen of her datapad. "If we combine the EMP pulses with a focused burst of directed energy, like a laser, we can create a feedback loop that destabilizes their shielding systems completely, not just temporarily but permanently." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "That sounds complicated. Do we have the resources to pull it off?" "It'll be tight," Emily admitted. "But I believe it's possible. We'd need to modify some of our existing equipment and reroute power from non-essential systems. It won't be easy, but it could give us the advantage we need." Sarah didn't hesitate. "Do it," she said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Over the next several hours, the station transformed into a hive of frantic activity. Teams of engineers and technicians worked around the clock to implement Emily's plan. Power conduits were rewired, spare parts scavenged from storage rooms, and experimental components hastily assembled. Sarah coordinated the efforts, ensuring that every detail was accounted for. She knew that failure wasn't an option, not when so much was at stake. Meanwhile, Ryan led reconnaissance missions outside the station, keeping tabs on the Krill fleet. Their movements suggested that another assault was imminent. Reinforcements had arrived, swelling the ranks of the enemy ships. It was clear that Commander Daxor intended to finish what he had started, and this time, he wouldn't underestimate the humans. "They're massing near the outer edge of the asteroid field," Ryan reported during one of his updates. "Looks like they're gearing up for a full-scale invasion." Sarah nodded grimly. "Then we'd better be ready." As the deadline approached, tensions ran high. Everyone aboard the station knew that the coming battle would decide their fate. There were no guarantees, no promises of reinforcements or miracles. All they had was each other, and the hope that their ingenuity would carry them through. Finally, the modifications were complete. Emily stood beside the main control panel in the command center, her hands hovering nervously over the controls. "This is it," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "If this works, we'll have a real chance." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've done amazing work, Emily. Trust yourself." Outside, the Krill launched their attack. Hundreds of dropships descended upon the station, disgorging waves of heavily armed soldiers. Plasma bolts streaked through the corridors, and explosions rocked the structure. The humans fought back with everything they had, using traps, improvised, weapons, and sheer determination to hold the line. In the chaos, Sarah spotted Commander Daxor himself leading the charge. He moved with terrifying speed and precision, cutting down anyone who dared to stand in his path. His glowing red eyes burned with fury, and his massive frame seemed almost unstoppable. Sarah realized that if they wanted to win, they would have to take him down. "Ryan," she called over the comms, "Daxor's here. I'm going after him." "What?" "No way," Ryan shot back. "You can't face him alone." "I won't be alone," Sarah replied. "Just cover me." Without waiting for a response, she grabbed a blaster rifle and headed toward the source of the commotion. Along the way, she encountered pockets of resistance, taking out Krill soldiers with quick, calculated shots. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her focus never wavered. She knew what was at stake. When she finally reached Daxor, he was standing in the middle of a wide corridor, surrounded by fallen human defenders. His armor gleamed ominously in the dim light, and his weapon, a massive plasma cannon, hummed with deadly energy. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable behind his helmet. "So," he rumbled, "you are the one responsible for resisting us." Sarah steadied her breathing, raising her rifle. "And you're the one who underestimated us." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Daxor charged, moving faster than Sarah thought possible. She fired repeatedly, her shots ricocheting harmlessly off his shield. Desperate, she dove to the side, narrowly avoiding a blast from his cannon that left a smoking crater in the wall behind her. Thinking quickly, Sarah triggered one of the traps she had set earlier, a collapsing ceiling designed to crush intruders. Beams and panels rained down, forcing Daxor to retreat momentarily. Seizing the opportunity, she sprinted toward the nearest console, inputting commands to activate the modified EMP device. The machine roared to life, emitting a blinding pulse of energy that engulfed the area. Daxor staggered as his shield flickered, and died, leaving him exposed for the first time. Before he could recover, Sarah opened fire, striking him repeatedly until he collapsed to his knees. Breathing heavily, she stepped closer, pointing her weapon at him. "Surrender," she demanded, "or this ends now." To her surprise, Daxor laughed, a deep guttural sound that echoed through the corridor. "Impressive," he growled. "Perhaps my superiors were wrong about you humans." Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The combined EMP and energy burst had destabilized the Krill fleet's central command network, causing widespread malfunctions across their ships. One by one, the massive vessels began to drift aimlessly, their systems offline. Realizing the tide had turned decisively, the remaining Krill forces withdrew, retreating to the safety of their disabled fleet. As silence fell over the station, cheers erupted among the exhausted but triumphant humans. Sarah lowered her weapon, relief washing over her. They had done it. They had truly leveled the playing field. But as she looked out at the battered station and the weary faces of her comrades, she knew that the fight was far from over. Humanity had proven its strength, but the galaxy was vast, and challenges lay ahead. Still, for the first time in days, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "We'll keep fighting," she murmured, "no matter what." In a distant corner of the galaxy, far beyond the reach of Earth's most advanced telescopes, two ancient civilizations had been locked in an endless conflict. The Vorthan and the Caliph were not like other species. They did not fight with weapons that exploded or armies that marched across planets. Instead, they waged their war through manipulation of time and space itself. For thousands of years, they bent reality to their will, creating ripples in the fabric of existence to gain small advantages over each other. Neither side sought outright victory. They only wanted to maintain balance while ensuring no third party could ever intervene. On Earth, humanity remained blissfully unaware of this cosmic struggle. People went about their lives as always, working, dreaming, and looking up at the stars without knowing what lay hidden among them. That changed one fateful day when astronomers detected strange gravitational anomalies near Proxima Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. At first, scientists thought it might be some natural phenomenon, perhaps a black hole forming or a dying star collapsing. But as more data came in, it became clear that something far stranger was happening. Dr. Emily Grant, a brilliant astrophysicist working at the Global Space Research Institute, led the team investigating these anomalies. She was known for her sharp mind and relentless curiosity. Her colleagues often joked that she could solve any mystery if given enough coffee and time. When the readings from Proxima Centauri started pouring in, Emily knew right away that this was unlike anything anyone had seen before. The gravitational disturbances weren't random. They followed patterns, almost like waves rippling outward from a central point. Emily spent countless hours analyzing the data, barely sleeping or eating. Her assistant, a young researcher named Laura Bennett, tried to keep her grounded. "You're going to burn yourself out," Laura said one evening as they sat in the dimly lit lab. "Even geniuses need rest." "I can't stop now," Emily replied, her eyes glued to the screen. "This is huge. It's not just some anomaly. It's proof that we're not alone." Her hunch turned out to be correct. After weeks of study, Emily and her team identified the source of the disturbances: temporal rifts. These were tears in space-time, invisible to the naked eye but detectable through their effects on gravity. What made them even more extraordinary was that they seemed artificial, deliberately created by intelligent beings. Whoever or whatever was responsible for these rifts possessed technology far beyond anything humans had ever imagined. News of the discovery spread quickly, reaching world leaders and sparking both awe and fear. Governments convened emergency meetings to discuss the implications. Some argued that humanity should stay silent and avoid drawing attention to itself. Others believed that Earth needed to act decisively to protect itself. Admiral Joseph Reynolds, head of Earth's newly formed interstellar fleet, fell into the latter camp. He had spent decades preparing for the possibility of alien contact, though he never expected it to happen so soon. Reynolds wasted no time, assembling a task force to investigate the rifts. Leading the mission was Captain Daniel Carter, a seasoned officer known for his calm demeanor under pressure. His ship, the Eclipse, was one of the most advanced vessels in Earth's fleet, equipped with cutting-edge sensors and experimental propulsion systems. Alongside him were key members of the crew, including Lieutenant Laura Bennett, who had volunteered despite her earlier concerns about Emily's workload. As the Eclipse departed Earth's orbit, the weight of the mission hung heavily on everyone aboard. They were venturing into uncharted territory, unsure of what they would find or whether they would return safely. For many, the journey felt surreal. Just a few months ago, the idea of traveling beyond the solar system had seemed impossible. Now, here they were, heading toward a mystery that could redefine humanity's place in the universe. The closer they got to Proxima Centauri, the more intense the gravitational anomalies became. Instruments aboard the Eclipse began to malfunction, and strange phenomena started occurring. Crew members reported seeing flashes of light outside their windows, brief glimpses of shapes that vanished as quickly as they appeared. At one point, the ship's navigation system glitched, causing the vessel to veer off course momentarily. It took all of Carter's skill to regain control. Despite these challenges, the crew pressed on. Their determination only grew stronger. When they finally reached the rifts, Up close, the disturbances were even more awe-inspiring and unsettling. Swirling vortexes of energy stretched across vast distances, distorting everything around them. Time itself seemed to warp within their vicinity, making it difficult to track the ship's position accurately. It didn't take long for the eclipse to attract attention. As they scanned the area, sensors picked up signs of movement nearby. Moments later, shimmering figures materialized before the ship. These were the Vorthan, one of the civilizations responsible for the rifts. Their forms shifted constantly, like liquid silver flowing in intricate patterns. Though humanoid in shape, they radiated an aura of power and intelligence that left the crew speechless. A voice echoed through the ship's communication system, calm yet commanding. "You are not welcome here," it said. "Leave immediately or face the consequences." Captain Carter hesitated, unsure how to respond. Before he could speak, another group of beings appeared. A stark contrast to the Vorthan. These newcomers were cloaked in shadows, their features obscured by darkness. They identified themselves as the Kalith, rivals of the Vorthan. Unlike their counterparts, the Kalith did not demand the humans leave. Instead, they offered a proposition. Join forces with them, and they would share knowledge and technology beyond Earth's wildest dreams. The situation was unprecedented. Humanity had stumbled into a conflict between two ancient powers, neither of which viewed them as equals. Yet the rifts destabilized further with every passing moment, threatening to unravel the delicate balance maintained by the Vorthan and Kalith for millennia. Trapped between these enigmatic forces, the crew of the Eclipse faced a decision that could alter the course of history, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. Back on Earth, news of the encounter sent shockwaves through society. People gathered around televisions and radios, eager for updates from the fleet. Scientists and politicians debated endlessly about the best course of action. Should humanity retreat and hope to avoid further entanglement? Or should they seize this opportunity to step onto the galactic stage, consequences be damned? For Dr. Emily Grant, watching events unfold from Earth was agonizing. She had dedicated her life to understanding the universe, and now she found herself powerless to influence the outcome. All she could do was wait, and hope that the brave men and women aboard the Eclipse would make the right choice. The first wave of Krill soldiers had been slowed, but they were far from defeated. The humans knew that the real fight was just beginning. Commander Daxor's fleet still loomed menacingly in orbit, and reinforcements were likely on the way. Despite their initial success, the defenders of Proxima Centauri Station understood that they couldn't afford to rest. Every moment counted, and every decision could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. Sarah Blake stood in the command center, her eyes scanning the monitors displaying live feeds from various parts of the station. The screen showed flashes of combat, humans firing makeshift weapons at Krill warriors, explosions rocking the outer hulls, and debris floating in zero gravity. Her mind raced as she processed the situation. Though the humans had managed to hold their ground so far, they were running low on resources. Ammunition was dwindling, and many of their traps had already been triggered. They needed a new plan, and fast. "Ryan!" Sarah called out, turning to Captain Ryan Mitchell, who was coordinating with the pilots still engaging the Krill fleet outside. "How are things looking up there?" Ryan leaned over a console, his face tense as he reviewed the latest updates. "Not great," he admitted. "We've taken out a few more dropships, but their shields are holding up better than we expected. Plus, I'm starting to lose count of how many fighters we've lost. If this keeps up, we won't have enough ships left to protect the station." Sarah frowned. She had hoped the EMP weapons would give them a bigger advantage, but it seemed the Krill were adapting quickly. Still, she refused to let despair creep in. "We need to hit them harder," she said firmly. "Something unexpected. something they won't see coming. Ryan nodded, though his expression remained grim. Easier said than done. These guys aren't exactly amateurs. Before Sarah could respond, Dr. Emily Grant entered the room, clutching a tablet filled with data. Her usually neat hair was disheveled, and dark circles under her eyes hinted at sleepless hours spent in her lab. But despite her exhaustion, her voice carried a note of excitement. "I think I've found something," she announced. "A pattern in their shield frequencies." Sarah and Ryan exchanged hopeful glances. "Go on," Sarah urged. Emily tapped the screen of her tablet, pulling up graphs and charts. "From what I can tell, their shielding system cycles through specific energy signatures every few minutes. If we can time our attacks perfectly, hitting them during those brief windows when their shields are weakest, we might be able to punch through." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "That sounds risky. What if we miss the window? We'd be wasting shots we can't afford to waste." "It's a risk we'll have to take," Sarah interjected. "Right now, we don't have any other options. Emily, how soon can you program the EMP devices to sync with these frequency patterns?" "I've already started working on it," Emily replied, "but it'll take some time to fine-tune, maybe an hour or two." "Do it," Sarah ordered. "In the meantime, Ryan, gather your best pilots. We're going to launch another attack, but this time we're going straight for their flagship." Ryan blinked in surprise. "Their flagship? That thing's a fortress. How do you expect us to even get close?" "We'll use the asteroid field again," Sarah explained. "It's unpredictable, and they won't be expecting us to try anything that bold. If we can disable their command center, it'll throw their entire operation into chaos." Ryan hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, let's do it." While Emily worked tirelessly in her lab, Sarah and Ryan prepared for the daring assault. Pilots volunteered without hesitation, knowing the stakes. Among them was Lieutenant Jake Harper, a young but skilled flyer with a reputation for taking risks. He grinned as he climbed into his fighter, eager to prove himself. "About time we took the fight to them," he said, his voice crackling over the comms. The squadron launched from the station's hangar bay, weaving through the jagged rocks of the asteroid field. The Krill fleet hung like a shadow in the distance, its massive ships glowing ominously against the backdrop of stars. As the humans approached, enemy patrols scrambled to intercept them, but the chaotic terrain gave the smaller, more agile human fighters an edge. Ryan led the charge, his ship darting between asteroids as plasma bolts streaked past. "Stay sharp," he barked over the comms. "We're not here to play games. Hit hard and fast, then fall back before they can regroup." The pilots obeyed, unleashing a barrage of EMP missiles that temporarily disabled several Krill cruisers. The explosions lit up the darkness, sending shock waves rippling through space. Amid the chaos, Ryan spotted a gap in the enemy formation, a direct path to the flagship. "This is it," he muttered. "Follow me." With adrenaline pumping through his veins, Ryan pushed his ship to its limits, hurtling toward the towering vessel. Behind him, his squadron formed a tight formation, their engines roaring as they closed the distance. The flagship's defenses came alive, unleashing torrents of fire that forced the humans to swerve and dodge constantly. It was a deadly dance, but somehow they stayed on course. As they reached the flagship's hull, Ryan signaled for the team to split up. Each pilot targeted a different section of the ship, deploying EMP charges designed to disrupt its systems. Explosions erupted across the surface, causing lights to flicker and panels to spark. For a brief moment, the humans dared to hope that their plan was working, but their victory was short-lived. Reinforcements arrived in the form of additional Krill fighters, forcing Ryan and his team to retreat. Though they had inflicted significant damage, the flagship remained operational. As they fled back toward the safety of the asteroid field, Ryan clenched his fists in frustration. "We almost had them," he growled. Back aboard the station, Sarah watched the battle unfold on the monitors. Her heart sank as she saw the squadron being driven away, but she reminded herself that the fight wasn't over yet. "Emily, how's it coming?" she asked, stepping into the lab. Emily looked up from her work, her glasses askew. "Almost done," she replied. "Just a few more adjustments." Moments later, the final piece fell into place. Emily uploaded the new frequency. Data to the EMP devices scattered throughout the station. "It's ready," she said breathlessly. "Now all we need is the right moment." That moment came sooner than expected. The Krill launched a second wave of ground troops, determined to overwhelm the humans once and for all. This time they brought heavy artillery, giant cannons capable of tearing through the station's walls. Alarms blared as the invaders breached the outer defenses, flooding into the corridors with overwhelming force. Sarah and her team fought back fiercely, using every trick they had learned during the first wave. They lured the Krill into narrow passages where their numbers became a disadvantage, then ambushed them with rigged explosives and automated turrets. But the enemy kept coming, relentless and unyielding. Desperate for a breakthrough, Sarah activated the newly programmed EMP devices. A deafening hum filled the air as the machines powered up, emitting pulses of energy that spread outward like ripples in water. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the Krill soldiers staggered as their shields faltered and collapsed. "Yes!" Sarah exclaimed, pumping her fist in triumph. Without their protective barriers, the invaders were vulnerable. The humans seized the opportunity, unleashing everything they had left. Blaster fire echoed through the halls as the tide of battle shifted decisively in their favor. Meanwhile, outside the station, Ryan noticed the change in momentum. Realizing that the humans had gained the upper hand, he rallied his remaining pilots for one last push. Together, they dove back into the fray, targeting the Krill support ships that orbited the battlefield. With their shields compromised, the enemy vessels were easy prey for the human fighters. As the dust settled, literally and figuratively, the humans emerged victorious. The surviving Krill forces retreated to their fleet, regrouping in orbit while assessing their losses. Though the battle had been costly, the defenders of Proxima Centauri Station had proven themselves more than a match for the invaders. Standing amidst the wreckage, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "We did it," she said softly, her voice tinged with both relief and pride. Around her, exhausted but elated soldiers cheered, celebrating their hard-fought victory. But Sarah knew the war was far from over. The Krill wouldn't give up so easily, and humanity's struggle for survival was only just beginning. Still, she felt a renewed sense of hope. Against all odds, they had leveled the playing field and shown the galaxy that Earth's finest were not to be underestimated. In the vast expanse of space, far beyond the reaches of Earth's solar system, humanity had carved out a new life among the stars. They had colonized dozens of planets and built thriving stations around distant suns. These colonies were bustling, hubs of trade, science, and culture. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe, but they had always managed to stay out of trouble by focusing on exploration rather than conquest. Still, their reputation for cleverness and adaptability spread across the galaxy, earning them both admiration and suspicion. The Krill Dominion was one such civilization that had taken notice. The Krill were an ancient and powerful empire, spanning hundreds of star systems. Their armies were legendary, their technology unmatched, and their pride unshakable. To them, humanity was small, scattered, and insignificant, a minor nuisance, at best. But lately, the humans' presence had grown too large to ignore. The Dominion decided it was time to bring these upstart settlers under their control. It all began when a massive fleet of Krill warships appeared in orbit around Proxima Centauri Station, one of humanity's most important outposts. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, a sprawling complex of metal and glass suspended in the void of space. It served as a hub for mining operations, scientific research, and interstellar commerce. Thousands of people called it home, and its importance to human expansion could not be overstated. When the Krill arrived, they wasted no time making their intentions clear. A holographic transmission flickered to life in the station's command center. On the screen stood Commander Daxor, a towering figure clad in gleaming silver armor. His sharp, angular features and glowing red eyes made him look every bit the alien warrior he was. Behind him loomed the silhouette of his flagship, a monstrous vessel bristling with weapons. "Humans," Daxor began, his voice deep and resonant. "You are now under the jurisdiction of the Krill Dominion. Surrender your territories, resources, and technology, and you may be allowed to continue existing under our rule. Resist, and you will be annihilated." The room fell silent as the message ended. The officers in the command center exchanged uneasy glances. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others clenched their fists in frustration. Among those present was Lieutenant Sarah Blake, a young but highly capable officer known for her quick thinking and calm demeanor. She stood near the main console, arms crossed, watching the screen with a mixture of disbelief and amusement. "They've got to be kidding," muttered Captain Ryan Mitchell, a seasoned pilot who had seen his fair share of battles. He leaned, back in his chair, scratching the stubble on his chin. "Did they really think we'd just roll over like that?" Sarah turned to face him, a wry smile playing on her lips. "Apparently so," she replied. "Either they don't know us very well, or they're just plain arrogant." Beside them, Dr. Emily Grant adjusted her glasses nervously. A brilliant scientist specializing in experimental energy technologies, Emily was more accustomed to working in labs than dealing with military threats. But even she couldn't help feeling a spark of defiance ignite within her. "We can't let them push us around," she said softly. "If we work together, I'm sure we can find a way to fight back." Sarah nodded in agreement. "Exactly. We've faced worse odds before. Remember the pirate raids last year? Those guys thought they could take us down too, and look how that turned out." Ryan chuckled at the memory. "Yeah, they definitely didn't see that coming. Let's hope these Krill are just as clueless." Despite the tension in the air, there was a sense of quiet confidence among the humans. They had been underestimated before, and each time they had risen to the challenge. This situation was no different, or so they hoped. As the hours passed, the Krill fleet remained ominously positioned in orbit, casting long shadows over the station. From the observation deck, civilians gathered to watch the spectacle. Children pressed their faces against the glass, pointing excitedly at the alien ships, while adults whispered anxiously about what might happen next. Fear mingled with curiosity, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation. Meanwhile, Sarah and her team sprang into action. They knew the Krill wouldn't wait forever, and preparations needed to be made. Sarah contacted nearby patrol ships and rallied pilots willing to join the defense effort. Ryan volunteered to lead a squadron of modified fighters, each equipped with improvised upgrades designed to give them an edge against the superior Krill vessels. Emily, meanwhile, retreated to her lab, poring over data and schematics in search of any weakness in the enemy's defenses. "You know," Sarah remarked as she walked alongside Ryan through the station's corridors, "this reminds me of something my grandfather used to say. The bigger they are, the harder they fall." Ryan grinned. "I like that. Let's make sure these guys trip over their own egos." By the time night fell, or what passed for night aboard the station, the humans had devised a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing. Using the asteroid field surrounding Proxima Centauri as cover, Ryan and his pilots would launch hit-and-run attacks on the Krill fleet, targeting supply lines and communication arrays. Meanwhile, ground forces led by Sarah would fortify the station's defenses, turning its labyrinthine corridors and industrial equipment into traps for any invaders. Emily's contribution came in the form of a prototype weapon she had been developing. It emitted bursts of electromagnetic energy capable of disrupting electronic systems. While it hadn't been tested in combat yet, she believed it could disable the Krill's advanced shielding, if only temporarily. As dawn approached, the first wave of Krill soldiers descended upon the station. Clad in sleek black exosuits and armed with plasma rifles, they moved with mechanical precision. Their leader, a hulking brute named Zokar, barked orders in guttural tones, directing his troops toward key entry points. The humans watched from hidden vantage points, waiting for the right moment to strike. When the signal came, chaos erupted. Ryan's squadron swooped in from behind the asteroids, unleashing a barrage of EMP missiles that crippled several Krill dropships. Caught off. Guard! The invaders scrambled to regroup, giving Sarah's forces precious time to set their traps. Inside the station, makeshift barricades went up and automated turrets, rigged from mining equipment, began firing at the advancing enemy. For hours, the battle raged on. Explosions lit up the darkness outside, while inside the station, corridors echoed with the sounds of gunfire and shouting. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the humans held their ground. Every setback seemed to fuel their determination, pushing them to dig deeper and fight harder. At one point, Sarah found herself cornered in a maintenance tunnel, pursued by two Krill warriors. Thinking quickly, she grabbed a nearby pipe and swung it with all her might, striking one of them square in the chest. As the other lunged at her, she ducked and rolled, triggering a hidden trap that sent a cascade of debris tumbling down, pinning him beneath the rubble. Breathing heavily, Sarah leaned against the wall, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Guess they didn't expect us to fight dirty," she muttered to herself with a smirk. Back in her lab, Emily monitored the progress of the battle, adjusting frequencies on her device to maximize its effectiveness. When reports came in of disabled Krill shields, she allowed herself a small smile. Her invention was working. As the day wore on, it became clear that the humans had succeeded in slowing the Krill advance. Though casualties were high and the station bore the scars of battle, morale remained strong. The invaders had been humbled, if only slightly, by the ferocity of the resistance they faced. Standing atop the command center, Sarah gazed out at the battlefield below. Flames licked the edges of damaged ships, and smoke billowed into the vacuum of space. Yet amidst the destruction, there was a glimmer of hope. Humanity had proven once again that they were not to be underestimated. "We're not done yet," she whispered, her voice steady despite the fatigue weighing on her shoulders. "Not by a long shot." And with that, she turned back to her team, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Decades had passed since humanity first stepped into the galactic community. Earth was no longer the fractured, fearful planet it had once been. It had grown, evolved, and found its place among the stars. Yet even as humans ventured further into space, they carried with them the lessons of their past, the mistakes, the sacrifices, and the hard-won victories. These lessons shaped every decision they made, guiding them toward a future defined by unity rather than division. Commander. Alex Carter, now an elder statesman, spent much of his time reflecting on how far humanity had come. He lived in a quiet coastal town, where the sound of waves crashing against the shore reminded him of the vastness of the universe. Though retired from active duty, he remained a trusted advisor to Earth's leaders, offering wisdom born from years of experience. His voice carried weight, not because of authority, but because of the respect he had earned through humility and perseverance. Dr. Laura Bennett, too, had aged gracefully. Her hair was streaked with gray, but her eyes still sparkled with the same passion that had driven her decades earlier. She continued to travel across the galaxy, acting as a bridge between species and cultures. Her work had taken her to countless worlds, each one more fascinating than the last. Yet no matter how far she roamed, she always returned to Earth, drawn by a deep love for the planet that had shaped her journey. Together, Carter and Laura became living symbols of humanity's transformation. Their names were spoken with reverence, not just on Earth, but among other civilizations as well. They were proof that change was possible, even for a species as flawed and unpredictable as humans. But neither of them took credit for what had been achieved. "We didn't do this alone," Laura often said. "It was everyone, the scientists, the artists, the farmers, the teachers, the dreamers. Humanity chose to rise." Despite the progress, challenges remained. The galaxy was vast and complex, filled with civilizations at different stages of development. Some were peaceful, eager to share knowledge and resources. Others were wary, having suffered betrayals or conflicts in their own histories. Humanity's role in this intricate web was still being defined, and mistakes were inevitable. But instead of retreating into fear or arrogance, humans learned to navigate these challenges with patience and empathy. One such challenge arose when Earth encountered a new civilization called the Lyrathans. The Lyrathans were a nomadic species, traveling through space in massive ships that functioned as both homes and sanctuaries. They were cautious of outsiders, having faced exploitation and violence from other species in the past. When Earth's explorers first made contact, the Lyrathans responded with suspicion, refusing to engage beyond basic communication. Carter and Laura were called upon to help bridge the gap. They traveled to the Lyrathan fleet, accompanied by a big, small team of diplomats and scientists. The Lyrathans' ships were unlike anything they had seen before, organic structures that seemed to breathe and pulse with life. Inside, the air smelled faintly of earth and moss, and the walls shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. It was clear that the Lyrathans valued harmony with nature, even in the depths of space. Laura approached the situation with care, taking time to learn about the Lyrathans' culture and history. She discovered that their caution stemmed not from hostility, but from a desire to protect their way of life. Over centuries, they had developed a deep mistrust of species that prioritized technology over balance. To win their trust, Laura proposed a cultural exchange, a chance for humans and Lyrathans to share their stories, art, and traditions. At first, the Lyrathans hesitated, but as days turned into weeks, curiosity began to outweigh fear. They invited the human delegation to participate in their rituals, which included communal meals, storytelling sessions, and meditative practices designed to connect individuals with the rhythms of the universe. In return, the humans shared music, paintings, and scientific discoveries that showcased humanity's creativity and resilience. Slowly, a bond formed between the two species. The Lyrathans began to see humans not as threats, but as potential allies. They agreed to establish formal relations with Earth, opening the door to collaboration on projects ranging from environmental restoration to interstellar exploration. For Carter and Laura, it was a reminder of the power of understanding and mutual respect. Back on Earth, the story of the Lyrathans inspired a new generation of explorers and diplomats. Schools introduced programs focused on intercultural communication, teaching students how to approach unfamiliar societies with openness and humility. Artists created works inspired by alien cultures, blending human and extraterrestrial influences in ways that celebrated diversity. Even businesses adapted, prioritizing sustainability and cooperation over profit and competition. Yet not all encounters went smoothly. There were moments of tension, misunderstandings that threatened to derail fragile alliances. One such incident occurred when a human mining operation accidentally damaged a sacred site belonging to the Tavans, a reclusive species known for their mastery of energy manipulation. The Tavans responded with anger, severing all ties with Earth and threatening retaliation. Carter and Laura were sent to mediate the dispute. They arrived on the Tavan homeworld, a planet bathed in perpetual twilight, its surface dotted with glowing crystals that pulsed like heartbeats. The Tavans greeted them coldly, their translucent forms shimmering with barely contained fury. It was clear that apologies alone would not be enough to mend the rift. Instead of offering excuses, Carter and Laura listened. They allowed the Tavans to express their pain and frustration, acknowledging the harm caused by humanity's carelessness. Then, they presented a plan to restore the damaged site, incorporating Tavan technology and expertise to ensure the process aligned with their values. It was a gesture of genuine remorse, one that demonstrated humanity's willingness to learn and adapt. The Tavans accepted the proposal, though their trust remained fragile. Over time, however, collaboration on the restoration project helped rebuild the relationship. Humans and Tavans worked side by side, learning from each other and finding common ground. By the time the site was fully restored, it had become a symbol of reconciliation, a testament to the power of humility and cooperation. As the years passed, humanity's reputation in the galaxy continued to grow. Earth became known not just as a member of the Concordance, but as a champion of peace and understanding. Its people contributed to efforts addressing everything from resource scarcity to interstellar diplomacy, earning respect and admiration from other species. Yet Carter and Laura never lost sight of the fact that humanity's journey was far from over. One evening, as they sat together under a star-filled sky, Carter spoke quietly. "Do you ever wonder if we'll ever reach perfection?" he asked. "A world where there's no fear, no conflict, no mistakes?" Laura smiled softly. "I don't think perfection is the goal," she replied. "It's about striving to be better, to keep learning, growing, and reaching out. That's what makes us human." Carter nodded, gazing at the stars. "And maybe that's enough." In the end, humanity's story was one of resilience and hope. It was a story of a species that had stumbled, fallen, and risen again, not because it was perfect, but because it refused to give up. The galaxy watched, no longer with fear or suspicion, but with a sense of possibility. Humanity had chosen a path forward, and though the road ahead was uncertain, it was a path worth walking. Years had passed since the Concordance's ultimatum changed the course of humanity's history. The scars of conflict were still visible, but Earth was slowly healing. Factories that once churned out weapons now produced clean energy solutions, medical supplies, and tools to combat climate change. Monuments to the fallen Vaylans stood tall in cities across the globe, reminders of the cost of mistrust and aggression. Humanity had been humbled, forced to confront its flaws, but it had also begun to rebuild, not just its infrastructure, but its spirit. Commander Alex Carter sat in his office, staring out at the horizon. The sun was setting, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. It was a peaceful moment, a stark contrast to the chaos he had lived through. He often thought about the choices humanity had made, the mistakes, the sacrifices, and the lessons learned. Though the road ahead was uncertain, Carter felt a quiet sense of hope. For the first time, humanity seemed willing to look beyond itself, to consider its place in the larger universe. Dr. Laura Bennett had dedicated her life to fostering understanding between humans and aliens. She traveled the world, speaking at schools, universities, and community centers. Her message was simple. Cooperation and empathy were the keys to survival, not just on Earth, but among the stars. She shared stories of the Vaylans, their culture, and their philosophy of unity. People listened, inspired by her passion and determination. Slowly, fear began to give way to curiosity. Children dreamed of meeting extraterrestrial beings, while adults worked to create a world worthy of joining the galactic community. The Concordance kept a close watch on Earth, ensuring that humanity adhered to the terms of its agreement. Representatives from the Alliance visited regularly, observing human progress and offering guidance when needed. At first, these visits were met with suspicion, but over time, people grew accustomed to the presence of alien beings. Some even welcomed them, eager to learn from their advanced knowledge and experience. The Valons, too, played a crucial role in rebuilding trust. Zinara, who had once been wary of humanity, became a bridge between species, working alongside Laura to promote peace and understanding. Despite these efforts, challenges remained. Not everyone embraced the new direction Earth had taken. General Matthew Hayes, though captured and judged by the Concordance, had left behind a legacy of resistance. His supporters, scattered but persistent, continued to push for independence and military strength. They believed that submission to the Concordance was a betrayal of humanity's identity, a surrender of its freedom. Protests erupted occasionally, fueled by anger and nostalgia for a time when Earth stood alone. Carter understood their frustration, but he also knew that clinging to the past would only lead to destruction. He spent countless hours meeting with leaders of these groups, listening to their concerns and sharing his own experiences. "We can't go back," he told them during one such meeting. "That path ended in war and loss. But we can move forward, together. We have a chance to build something better, something greater than we ever imagined." His words didn't always resonate, but they planted seeds of doubt in minds hardened by fear. Slowly, some began to reconsider their stance. Others remained, stubborn, unwilling to let go of their grievances. Yet even among the most resistant, there was a growing recognition that humanity couldn't face the galaxy alone. If Earth wanted to survive and thrive, it would need allies. As the years went by, signs of progress became undeniable. Cities transformed into hubs of innovation and creativity, blending human ingenuity with alien technology. Farms adopted sustainable practices, ensuring food security for generations to come. Education systems evolved, teaching children about the importance of cooperation, critical thinking, and cultural exchange. Artists drew inspiration from the stars, creating works that celebrated humanity's connection to the cosmos. Laura watched these changes unfold with a mix of pride and relief. She remembered the early days after the Concordance's ultimatum, when despair had seemed insurmountable. Now she saw glimpses of a brighter future, a future where humanity could stand shoulder to shoulder with other civilizations, contributing to the collective good of the galaxy. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of tension and uncertainty, but the overall trajectory was clear. Humanity was learning to grow. One day, Laura received an invitation from Kale, the leader of the Concordance. It was rare for him to communicate directly with humans, so the gesture carried significant weight. Accompanied by Carter, she traveled to the Valan homeworld once again, this time as representatives of a united Earth. The journey felt different now, less fraught with anxiety and more filled with anticipation. When they arrived, Kyle greeted them warmly, or as warmly as a towering being of immense power could. "You have come far," he said, his voice resonating like distant thunder. "Though your path has been difficult, you have shown resilience and a willingness to change. That is commendable." Laura bowed her head slightly, humbled by his words. "Thank you," she said. "We know we still have much to learn, but we are committed to doing better, for ourselves and for others." Kale nodded, his glowing eyes reflecting approval. "The galaxy is vast, and its challenges are many, but so too are its opportunities. You have earned a place among us, not as equals yet, but as partners on the journey toward unity." He paused, then added, "Remember, the choices you make today will shape not only your future, but the future of all." The meeting ended with a ceremony marking Earth's provisional acceptance into the Concordance. It was a symbolic gesture, a promise rather than a guarantee. Humanity would continue to be monitored, its actions scrutinized, but the door to the galactic community had been opened. For Carter and Laura, it was a moment of profound significance, a culmination of years of effort, sacrifice, and hope. Back on Earth, news of the ceremony spread quickly, sparking celebrations around the world. Fireworks lit up the night sky, and music filled the air as people danced and sang. Strangers hugged, tears streaming down their faces as they realized how far they had come. Even those who had resisted the Concordance's influence found themselves caught up in the joy of the moment. For a brief time, humanity felt united, not just as nations or individuals, but as a single species reaching for the stars. In the months that followed, Earth began to integrate more fully into the galactic community. Trade agreements were established, allowing humans to exchange goods and ideas with other civilizations. Scientists collaborated on projects that pushed the boundaries of knowledge, exploring mysteries that had once seemed impossible to solve. Artists and storytellers shared their work with alien audiences, creating bonds that transcended language and culture. Yet Carter and Laura never forgot the cost of humanity's journey. They visited the monuments to the fallen Vaylans often, paying their respects and reminding themselves of the importance of peace. They spoke openly about the mistakes of the past, urging others to remember the lessons learned. "We chose war once," Carter said during one speech. "It nearly destroyed us. Let's never make that choice again." Laura echoed his sentiment, adding, "Fear divides us, but courage brings us together. Let's choose courage, not just for ourselves, but for all who share this universe." As the years turned into decades, Earth flourished. Its people became explorers, venturing into the stars alongside their alien allies. They discovered new worlds, formed friendships with other species, and contributed to the Concordance's mission of unity and cooperation. Humanity had proven that it could rise above its flaws, that it could choose a better path even after stumbling into darkness. The galaxy still watched Earth, but no longer with fear or suspicion. Instead, it watched with cautious optimism, hopeful that humanity's story would inspire others to follow a similar path. And though challenges lay ahead, Carter and Laura knew that the journey was worth it. Together, they had helped guide humanity toward a brighter future, one defined not by war, but by the promise of peace.